Greetings, fellow scholars of the livestream. I'm Vyzz from the Cosmo Canyon Observatory, and today we're going to cover the third part of our episode Yuffie footage analysis. And this time it's all about the battle system, or more precisely, all the new elements that have been unveiled, at least if you look very closely. We're also going to have a quick look at this one additional scene from the Play stream, which aired on March 21st. But first, there's a very important correction I have to make. In our last video, we claimed that the start of the Wutai War has been retconned, mostly by the World Preview book. And there it apparently says that it started in 1985, which is incorrect. It does say about 15 years prior to Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy VII didn't happen on the millennia change, so 2000 minus 15 does equal to 1985. However, Final Fantasy VII happened in year 7, so if we subtract 15 from 2007, we arrive in the same year as the original game claims, 1992. So there's no retcon, at least concerning the start of the Wutai War. The end is still pushed back by 2 months. For whatever reason, no idea currently. We apologize for the inconvenience. And now let's move on to this short but interesting additional scene shown at the Play stream. Let's have a look.
You guys just don't know when to quit!
In general, this whole area or building looks to be part of some sort of processing facility, because it does move around some containers on a conveyor belt, as we see here, which I'll at least hope it's Al, activates using this switch for us, and then it starts moving and throws those, hopefully, those Shinra guards off the thing, eventually. At the same time, Yuffie also isn't prepared and almost falls off here. We'll get into this a little bit later, so for now let's just pinpoint where this area actually is. So if we compare it to the area here where Yuffie executes her limit break, the walls look pretty similar, don't they? They're also slightly slanted here and here. We see it better in the next shot. Also quite a similar wall architecture. We don't see the pipes, unfortunately, in this scene here, so because of this and all the other parts of this area, for example, the platform, all the other details on top of the platform look quite different. Or at least the arrangement looks different. You can see it here again. It's the same kind of environment, but looks different. And we're also pretty close to the ground here, which we are not. This shot here, it looks like we're much farther up. The ground floor is kind of further down, but we're still pretty far up in both shots. As we see here. Here, before Yuffie almost falls off, or maybe even completely falls off, we see the missing roof and the crossing struts, which we can also see here, which are pretty close as well. So it seems like this area where she performs her limit break is in an adjacent hall or room to this one, and both might be connected through this hallway here, where Sonon and Yuffie run through, and then jump onto the conveyor belt with the containers. But this whole facility seems to be quite a ways off from the main pillar of Midgar, which is our ultimate goal, as we see here in the boss battle, where we're right next to it here. Unless they just put a full 3D model of it right in front of a much farther version of it in the skybox, which is also possible. So it could just be kind of cheating of the level designers, and we're in fact very close to this building, or maybe already in this building where this platform is adjacent to. We'll have to see. But in general, it's the same as here. To see with all those comparison shots. And here's the conveyor belt. But it's still not the same. What's also pretty cool is that here, in this shot, we already see the way, or stairs, that lead to the platform Al jumps onto. Which probably means that Yuffie is about to fall off here. Maybe really falls off. Sonon jumps after her. And then we need to run around to reach the staircase again, to reach Al, and then move forward. It's hard to say which one comes first, but I have a feeling that the area where Yuffie performs a limit break is first, because it seems to be smaller. And then on the other side here, like on the other side of this platform we see in the background, to the, let's just say north for simplicity's sake, we can then enter this tunnel or this pathway to reach this other part here, or something like that. We'll see. And now let's finally start with the combat, the new elements in the combat system. First off, the UI, which does have some differences. First of all, Sonon is not playable, as we know from interviews with Nomura-san, and this is most likely indicated through this green hue instead of a blue of the inactive members, which could mean that he's not controllable. This also might be a function which they will use in future games. Maybe they'll introduce other characters, guest characters like Sonon, will temporarily fight among us, and we can also issue commands to them. Or it's just a one-off and we don't mix up this UI concept with the old one where we could switch. And you see the switch icon here and text is also gone. But there's still the L2, which means we can use L2 to issue commands. And it's moved to the top here because Sonon also has this weird wind icon, which we'll get into a bit later. Yuffie also has this new icon, which doesn't look like anything. Maybe it's just a default icon. We'll also get to that a bit later. It seems to have replaced the leader corner, the yellow one, which in this case is completely irrelevant anyway and obsolete, because Yuffie is always the leader. You can't change the leader anyway. Now let's just have a quick look at Sonon's icon. It's sometimes colored and opaque, and sometimes transparent and gray. And in all of the trailer footage, it's always colored when the whole status areas are also surrounded by this blue neon effect or particle effect. It's possible that we can equip different special attacks for Sonon, for which this team-up indicator, the blue one, also needs to be active, or something completely different. So I think this icon here is the most inconclusive one in the footage we got so far. Now we already know both are able to execute team-up attacks, like here. She synergized Windstorm. Tam, tam, tam. Now what's very interesting, this one, is that there's one frame where it's gone. The term synergized just goes away in this one frame for both. It's just one frame and it doesn't really make sense because Sonon doesn't really gain distance or something like that and nothing else changes. Maybe it's just a little glitch. But it does tell us that it's not a fixed ability, synergized Art of War, but it's actually Art of War and Windstorm. Probably Windstorm is an ability from Sonon and Art of War is one from Yuffie. But if they're probably close together, then this blue effect surrounding the status elements are also active to indicate, oh, now they can use synergized attacks. And then both attacks switch to synergized ones, and then they're able to use team-up attacks, and both use an ATB, as we see here. Poof. ATB gone on both. But if they're not near each other enough, Yuffie can use Art of War herself, and Sonon can use Windstorm himself, or the other way around. Maybe Art of War is for Sonon and Windstorm for Yuffie, maybe. But since Sonon has this wind element in his status area, I'm pretty sure Sonon is wind-focused. I also think that because Sonon is the one who actually initiates Windstorm, you see, the player activates synergized Windstorm, and then Sonon activates the attack. And then just takes Yuffie. She holds onto his spear, and then he whirls her around while she's still holding her shuriken, dealing damage while being swirled around a few times, twice, 3 times, and the 3rd time she lets go, you see it here, and also throw changes to retrieve, so it's an automatic throw attack, which we'll get to later. And then you see her shuriken flies along with the Windstorm Tornado. Then just flies around and continuously deals damage. And during this time, Yuffie uses unarmed attacks, which we'll also take a look at a little bit later. And all this time, her triangle attack still says retrieve, which probably means we could retrieve her weapon anytime we want, but if we do so, the attack loses its additional effect, I assume. So it's probably recommended to just leave it there until it's done. And now let's have a look at Yuffie's weird diamond symbol, square diamond symbol. It's always like this, it never changes, at least in the announcement trailer. But in the extended PS5 showcase trailer, which you got to see in Sony's Play stream, there's a new scene we see here, and whoa, it suddenly changed to something else. You see it here? It's a lightning symbol now. Not just that, there also seems to be a timer on it, which is almost running out, because most of the timer is grey, and this little tenth of the whole thing is still bright yellow. So there's some ability, attack, or some other situation which grants Yuffie an elemental affinity, which she then can use for a certain amount of time. This segment is unfortunately too short, so we can't check for how long it's doing this, but it barely moves during this short time, so it's probably pretty long. We do see it moves a little bit, it's hard to see because of the quality, but it's still there. Now, what does this do? Doesn't seem to do anything, however, we see Yuffie using her unarmed attack, more on that later. Once, twice, and then she uses her finisher attack of this unarmed combo. And now check out what she does. And lightning attack. So either all of her attacks are lightning imbued, or just the last one of a combo attack is then imbued with lightning. And as we see, it doesn't use ATB, it doesn't use limit, it doesn't use MP, because she has 22 even before. So it's innate, it's an innate thunder ability or thunder spell she casts while being imbued with lightning, and I hope she can imbue herself with more elements, depending on the ability she uses. Now let's have another look at the team attacks. The first one, the Windstorm, we can also witness here in this area where we fight Cripchase and possibly the Edgehead. Sonon whirls Yuffie around again, still with her shuriken out to deal damage while being thrown around. Unfortunately, we're too far away from those Cripchase. But after the third twirl, you see exactly in this frame she lets it go, throw, and then it's changed to retrieve again. And it creates this Windstorm Tornado, which then whirls around the battlefield, damaging everything in its path. Twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then it just cuts out. And during that, Yuffie also uses her unarmed attacks yet again. And the other one is most likely Synergized Art of War, where both just wail on the enemy multiple times, individually, with their purple-colored weapons, which is quite the interesting color choice. But then, after they're done wailing, Yuffie jumps on top of Sonon's quarterstaff, jumps off again and twirls around, and then both deal the finishing blow. 2051 damage right here. However, where have we seen this attack before? Here we see they dealt a huge amount of damage, reached the damage limit, and it seems to lead into a cutscene. And now check out what they do. Yuffie jumps onto Sonon's quarterstaff, jumps off, twirls around a little bit, and then hits the enemy. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? It's not exactly the same attack, but it's the same principle. Jumps on it, jumps off, twirls around, and then both attack. And what's also interesting, during synergized abilities or team-up attacks, they don't gain any ATB. It's used, but it stays completely static, even if they damage the enemy. Only after Yuffie lands, she starts gaining ATB again. So during the main animation, while the player can't input any commands, there's no ATB gain, like in in-battle cutscenes. And the same again is during this attack. While the player can't do anything, no ATB gain. Same with the limit break, incidentally. It also stays the same. But more on that later. Let's quickly jump back to this blue effect, just to make sure I didn't tell you any fairy tales earlier. Here, they're both using a synergized attack, team-up attack. And it's ready with a blue effect. In here, of course, and it seems they're still close enough here. And in the next scene here, of course, they're still executing her team-up attack, so they're close enough still. But here, while she's executing her limit break, either it's because she's using her limit break that it's not possible, or maybe because Sonon is too far away, because we don't see him anywhere close. Now during this boss battle scene, they're both close enough to each other and it's ready, which is why they are also using the synergized Windstorm. And during this scene, they're also close enough together. They're not using any synergized attacks, but still, it would be possible, since they're close enough to each other. But here, I don't quite see Sonon yet, but Yuffie seems to be rather alone and has to take a huge amount of damage even while blocking. So this boss is not to be trifled with. And during this part also, they don't seem to be close enough and the boss is probably in the way. And Sonon is on the right side, Yuffie's here, quite far away. Or maybe it's because she's already using an ability on her own. However, now she also starts attacking normally. And they're still not able to use a synergized attack, even though both do have enough ATB. But Sonon is on the other side of the boss monster here, so they can't just jump towards each other. And here during cutscene, of course, doesn't really make sense to have synergized attacks available, so it's fine. And now let's have a look at Yuffie's specific new combat strategy. I've already talked a bit about this, but now let's get into the details. Her triangle attack, which can say throw or retrieve. We see it here, she has already thrown her shuriken, which is dealing damage up top. And then the player seems to have pressed retrieve right before, because Yuffie flies towards her shuriken, takes it off the enemy, deals damage, 206, and then just starts wailing again. And we see the throw ability returning. And it seems her aerial combo consists of 4 attacks. The retrieve damage, then 1, 2, and 3, and then the 4th is a downwards attack. I'm not quite sure why her hand is glowing here. Maybe this is a completely different or new mechanic that we don't see yet. Maybe something's ready or something is about to be charged up. Maybe her elemental thing. Who knows? Now let's have another look at her retrieve attack, which is also visible here. She has already thrown a shuriken, which deals damage, and then she flies towards it again and retrieves it. And 184 damage. Although you could also say that this damage hit here stems from Sonon, but since we saw Yuffie deal damage by retrieving her shuriken, it's possible that they just overlapped or something and Sonon missed or whatever. Although Sonon also deals again 186 damage here. So I'm not sure why Yuffie's retrieve attack didn't do any damage. It seems like Sonon is pretty strong and Yuffie is not, but she can deal much more hits. So in the end, she probably also can deal similar amount of damage in a similar amount of time, maybe. And in this new scene from the Play stream, we see a little bit better how her throw and retrieve attack actually works. She has already thrown the shuriken, which sticks here in the enemy's head, and is rotating as we see here. Dealt 59 points of damage, then deals 61 points of damage, 61 again here, then 64. And why are those damage numbers not from Sonon? Well, we also see a lot of immune, and we'll get to that shortly. But for now, if we look at the frames between those damages, 59, 61, 61, 64, it's always exactly 48 frames if we go by 60 frames. So it seems like while Yuffie is not retrieving, unfortunately we don't know how long the shuriken will stay on the enemy, but I assume that it will automatically return after, say, 10 seconds or something. Or until the enemy blocks it somehow or some other event happens. Now let's have a look at her normal attacks. She can either attack with her shuriken, which are short range as we see here. She charges towards the enemy and just wails around with her shuriken. Once and twice. Before it cuts away, unfortunately. But then she's also able, as we saw before, dealing unarmed damage. For example here. Her shuriken is over there. Then she uses her chi, or ninjutsu attacks, or whatever you want to call them. Or those orbs with Wu-Chai symbols appear around her. And when she's dealing damage, another one glows in front of her. And we see an orb fly towards the enemy. And again. Or maybe the orb is from Sonon, because Sonon can do this as well. Both can deal damage from afar. But unfortunately, the boss is immune to all of them. So Yuffie has to change between short and long range. So either she jumps into the fray with her shuriken and deals close range damage, or she throws her shuriken, which she can do from afar, and then continuously keep dealing damage by the shuriken and by dealing damage with her long range chi attack. And Sonon seems to be doing the same. As we see here, he deals close range damage with his staff. But here he also shoots balls of light. And since we can't control him, Sonon can probably just decide which of those attacks to execute. Close range or long range, depending on the situation. Now what's interesting is, as I said before, all those attacks don't cause any damage against the boss enemy. Why? Close range weapons do work, as we saw before. And her shuriken also deals damage. Here they continuously deal damage. It works. Her shuriken also deals damage, but as soon as they shoot their chi attacks, it's immune. So the logical conclusion is their chi attack are magic based, and this boss enemy seems to be completely immune against magic. Especially Yuffie's finishing move, which includes this lightning strike. It also doesn't do anything, because the 64 here is not caused by lightning, but by her shuriken, which you saw before is every 48 frames. So it's 59. It's a little bit smaller and then it's big, so we take this one as the reference frame. Then we go forward 10, 20, 30, 40. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. When it grows a little bit larger, it's 8. Then it's 10, 20, 30, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. It's hard to see because of the immune. 10, 20, 30, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And no other damage numbers. And we can also see it sort of in this scene here, where we use the synergized Windstorm attack. We see the Windstorm attack only deals reduced damage. Why? Possible because the Windstorm attack itself is magic based, but Yuffie's shuriken is within this wind attack. And as we see before here, physical close range attacks always cause weakness damage. And as we saw in the first rough analysis video in this short series about Yuffie DLC, Sonon has 2 purple materia equipped, Yuffie has a purple, a yellow and a green materia equipped, so no elemental damage. Unless they have more equipped, but I highly doubt it. So it seems that the boss is weak against physical damage, but immune against magical damage. And since both weakness and immune get combined into one, it probably results into a reduced damage, which is nice. Because if a combined damage always gets reduced to the lowest common denominator, which is immune, and it would suck, frankly. Yuffie has also another ability, which we don't know the name of because the menu has already disappeared. But this one seems also be magic based, because she uses her chi, as seen with the balls of light here. And again, here, with the symbol in the middle, like her long range normal attacks. And this huge explosion of symbols deal no damage, it's immune. Hence, magic attack. I first thought it is immune against a status effect, but it doesn't seem like it. It could be status effect because it kind of looks purple again. And the purple effect here kind of looks like poisonous, and some black swirls can also be seen, which is interesting. But there are more parallels between her normal long-range chi attack and this ability. Do you see the green leaves that are floating around the place? They can also be seen here. Yuffie deals chi damage. So many leaves are floating around. And they should also be seen here. Interestingly, no. Here we don't see them, so there is something up. Maybe because she now has lightning imbued into herself, and the leaves only appear when she is non-elemental. It's also quite an interesting find. Yeah, at least this ability only costs 1 ATB, since there's still 1 ATB left. So it's not too much of a loss if it's immune against it. Alright, now let's check out her limit break, which is called Bloodbath, as seen here in the fading menu. Only for 2 or maybe 3 frames. I'm really glad they left this in to show us, those who go through frame by frame, how her limit break is called. Although it's not hard to guess which limit break it is, because just check it out. She just starts wailing at the enemy, wailing, 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 and then, after some more hits, she jumps high up in the air and then lands again. Where have we seen this one before? Check this out. Wailing, 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 jumping up and landing again. Let's go through it a little bit slower. Wailing, 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 and then, at the end, they both jump upwards and then land again. And how is this limit break called in the original? Bloodfest. And if we count, I already did that beforehand, Bloodfest in the original deals 10 hits, and Yuffie's Bloodbath limit break in the remake deals 11, just 1 more. It's pretty neat. And we also see some nice leaves effect, red maple leaf effect, and a lot of blood. Do you see that? Blood, 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 blood splatter all around. Fortunately, it's only an effect, not really the blood of the enemy, but it does the job. And especially here. And what's also interesting is this effect at the end kind of looks like a blood tree or a fire tree, doesn't it? It fits very well to the leaf motif, nature motif, which is also quite Japanese. If you have played Ghost of Tsushima, there are a lot of those colored leaves, mostly red leaves, floating and being blown all around the place and lying around on the ground. Now the question is this her only limit break? Because it's the second limit break of her limit level 2. So kind of like a Clim Hazard for Cloud, which turned into Ascension. So basically combining Omnislash and Clim Hazard at the end. I have a feeling that this is her second limit break. And she has another one, which is either Greased Lightning or Clear Tranquil, which is a healing spell, which could come in handy. And there's also Landscraper, but this could be turned into an ability, I guess. Greased Lightning could also fit very well into her fighting style, which has a close range strike and then a long range strike. You can see it here. She jumps towards the runs towards the enemy, hits him, jumps back, and then hits him again. So close range, long range, which is Yuffie's MO in the remake. Now, we have already covered Sonon's battle quite extensively already, but there's one more thing. If we check him out or look closely, right here, after the Windstorm attack, Yuffie lands, starts attacking, and then Sonon, check out what he does. He glows blue, starts attacking with his bow staff again, and then you see his balls of light again, long range. But then, now look what he does. 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frames, and then he's behind Yuffie on the other side here. As we see here. So a really quick long range dash. Is this his normal dodge maneuver, or is it something entirely different? Unfortunately, we can't control him, so it's just something he does. But this swift long range dodging maneuver also adds to his wind element affinity, I think. Not really affinity in terms of element attack, but at least what he bases his fighting style on. That's probably why we see this wind symbol here. It could be that we can change his style, fighting style in the menu. And here we have equipped his wind style. Maybe there's also a lightning style or something else, and then he behaves differently. Wind is more fast and nimble. Lightning could be stronger, or fire could be stronger, or something like that. Or maybe he can change it himself, or there's an ability you can issue where he changes his element or his mode or style. So this is pretty interesting. Now for our last part we have this Centipede Guardian itself. We don't see much of his attacks because we mostly only see Yuffie and Sonon wailing on him, but there are a few things we can glean from his movements and his visuals. First, there's this kind of body slam or body twirl attack where it moves around pretty quickly and swings around his giant tail, which deals a giant amount of damage, as we've seen before. 1,000, but it's blocked, so 2,000 usually, so it's without blocking, we just lose over 2/3 of Yuffie's max HP, which is pretty devastating, to be honest. And it seems like he does this to the half of the battlefield over there. But we also see those weird red particles. It does shoot red particles towards somewhere, which is kind of weird, but it might have something to do with those laser dots on the pillars. Because it does seem like it directs those particles towards one of those pillars. So maybe it's some charge up maneuver or something, and maybe somewhere down the line, when all pillars are charged up, an environmental attack happens and takes place, which is extremely devastating. For example, like Leviathan's tsunami attack or Bahamut's mega flare attack or something like that. We see each of its element glowing up. Maybe it can also charge up its cannons, side laser cannons or something like that. So I'm pretty sure it will use its cannons at some point. So as we see in the front, it doesn't really seem to have any weapons at the front right now. Maybe those up here, but they rather look like magazines, some sort of storage, ammunition storage of sorts. It seems to be able to shoot projectiles from its side and can swing around his big tail. so it's not to be underestimated. Now, as we said, physical attacks hit his weakness, and magical attacks are completely useless. And since it has 2 phases, as we see shortly, it could be that second phase is turned around. Physical attacks do nothing, but magical attacks do, so we then need to switch up our tactics. The first one, where it probably doesn't move as much, we can be close and deal physical damage. But in its second phase, which starts here, we deal heavy damage again in this cutscene, and then the smoke appears, and when the smoke disappears again, it has changed to a drill head, which wasn't there before. And in this mode, you'd rather want to be as far away as possible, which is perfect if you want to use long-range attacks. And if long-range attacks, the magic ones, do deal weakness damage, and close-range attacks do not, this is pretty much perfect. But we'll see if this turns out to be the case. Now, it seems that it only has those 2 phases, because in the next scene, the extended one from the Play stream, it explodes and starts falling off the platform here. And then completely explodes and is defeated. And both hopefully sing the victory fanfare, but I don't think so. So either it has only 2 phases, or the third phase isn't a visual change, but only a mode change, where it changes up its behavior and attacks. But we'll see. Because usually many boss battles have more than 2 phases, although if I think back at, for example, the Ghoul or Eligor, both seem to have only 2 main phases. And this is also a mid-boss, because the real boss is in deep ground. Or we assume it's in deep ground. So it makes sense for this boss to only have 2 phases. What kind of robot is this? What is its function? Since it has a pretty nasty drill, I'm pretty sure it's used to excavate materials, or just dig tunnels, but probably also to bring back ore, iron, whatever you want to excavate from the underground. And that's probably why we see here those containers being moved around, which contain processed dirt, or at least ore that's been separated from the dirt that this caterpillar digs out, or something like that, which would at least fit into the lore of this place, which seems to be some sort of, as I said before, processing facility of some materials. But it would also be connected to deep ground, as it has this drill. Digging underground passages makes perfect sense. And what is deep ground? Combination of underground passages and underground areas. So yeah, we'll see if we get to learn more about this Caterpillar Guardian, or however it ends up being called. Alright, that's about it for the battle system. I hope you liked it. I didn't go too deep into all the details, especially added up damage numbers to see who deals more damage and stuff, as I've done before. But currently there's just so much to do, and I don't want to lose too much time on stuff that is just nice to have and not essential. Especially since we already know so much about the battle system. I thought this is not too much of an issue, so I focused on the attacks themselves and what the UI elements mean, and boss attacks and what have you. I hope you liked it. I really appreciate all of you guys who watched the full videos. It really helps a lot. Also, giving us a like helps a lot. And what helps you a lot is subscribing. And hit the bell button and choose all notifications so that you're immediately notified if the next one comes out. And since we also started this new series, Pulse of the Livestream, which focuses on mainly news and community information, sometimes maybe in the future also interviews, you really want to hit that subscribe button. But from my side, because Pulse of the Livestream is entirely hosted and created by Kudakuma and Peeps Nibbles, with the help from Rizzle and Rimovel, I still have 100% time for my usual shenanigans, the analysis. And afterwards, after this one, I'll focus entirely on Cloud and Sephiroth. The whole script is almost finished, and if it's finished I can split up into parts, and then one part will release after another. Those will be smaller parts to increase the frequency, so that you don't have to wait for too long, but in the end I'll also, like the Aerith analysis, will release a complete video, which will probably end up being like 3 hours or something, because there's so much to cover about Cloud's secrets, like the visions and the illusions, and these memory glitches, and Sephiroth's secrets and mysteries. There's just too much to cover, and so many references to other games and small details. You will like it. And in between, probably I'll also release some Final Fantasy 16 content, unless they'll release a trailer before I can do so, but let's hope so, because I do have a lot to say about icons and dominance, and also the characters themselves, and some neat story predictions. So let's hope I'm able to get those out before we get more information. But that's about it. If you want to get even more content, we also regularly or semi-regularly release more small, tiny image-based analyses on our Twitter account, and sometimes retweet other cool stuff. And for more discussions with me and all the other scholars of the livestream, or just some funny chats, join our Discord server. All the links are down below in the description. And you're also free to support us. Links are also down there. And a huge thank you for all of those who are already supporting us. It really means a lot to me, and all of us. But before you go, I can recommend to you another discussion I had a few days ago with Schrödinger's baby seal. You can click on the info card to the top right to jump directly over to his channel and the recorded video of our conversation, which is a full 4 hours long, and we cover all the interesting juicy mysteries of the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Intergrade, so you don't want to miss it. Alright, enough blabbering. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe and take care. Vyzz signing off.